Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Sandra Sheffer, host of Racing the Races, and I have a very special guest here for you all today. Is State Rep District 104, Felicia Robinson. She's going to do a legislative wrap-up for us because, you know, they were in session from January to like early March, and a lot of things happened. And today, one of those laws that came out of that session goes into effect. But before we get into all that, I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself to you all. We're going to talk a little bit about why it is that she decided to run and take on this heavy load. It's a heavy load. It's a heavy load, particularly with the breakdown and the makeup of our Florida legislator, right? It's a heavy load, and it takes a very strong and dedicated person to deal with what's happening up in Tallahassee at this time. And she's going to encourage y'all and tell y'all what it is. At the end of this, we're going to wrap it up because we're all about solutions too, right? So when we done with our conversation and before she gets off, she's going to tell y'all what y'all can do to make this better, you know, for everybody in the state. So thank you very much for taking some time to join me today. In State Rep Robinson, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
So as you stated, I am Felicia Robinson. I represent House District 104, which actually covers parts of Pembroke Pines, Miramar, and Miami Gardens. So if you note, I actually represent both of our counties, part of Broward County and part of Miami-Dade County. I'm an educator. Been in education for the last, actually in November, I'll have 30 years.
Look it.
Exactly. Taught math in the classroom for 16 years. I was a math instructional coach for about 6. And these last several years, I've been on the administrative team. I'm a lifelong, I live here in Miami-Dade County my entire life, but very, very close to Broward. So I've done a lot of things there. I attended Tuskegee University for my bachelor's. I have a master's from the University of Miami, and I actually have a specialist from Barry University. So I always tell myself I'm a good student.
Yes.
And
I have to tell you, my youngest brother went to Tuskegee. He's a class of 2001 or something like that.
Okay, so he came in like right after me.
Yeah. So the older one of us, we all went to PWIs, and he's like, y'all came back crazy. So he's like, I'm going to HBCU, and he was not playing, and he chose Tuskegee. Got the United Negro College Fund scholarship, went there and played tennis. He actually went back to home. He goes back to homecoming. I've never gone back to homecoming at the school that I graduated from, but he goes back. So I know you guys have like amazing and awesome alumni, and you guys are proud of your school.
You're going to have to attend a homecoming with him at some point.
Okay.
If you have gone to an HBCU, you understand going back to a homecoming, because a homecoming for an HBCU student is like family reunion. It's a family reunion. So it's an opportunity for you to come back and support your school. Like when you come back to the family reunion, you support the family and see what's happening and can encourage and motivate. And just really to make sure that we continuously being successful and show the new students how it's done.
So and you guys are serious too, because they have a really good alumni too, because a lot of his friends here are also Tuskegee alum, the ones who are from Miami. They become friends, they drive home together and everything. I mean, it was a completely different college experience for him than the one that I had.
Well, so I know we're not talking about colleges and we're not talking about issues, but me being an educator, when I do speak to our students, especially students that come from my community, I do encourage them to try HBCU because it instills in something in you like none other. And sometimes I think people try to act as if you don't get a good education. Well, I'm here to tell you, and there's a lot of proof that the education that we receive at our HBCUs is of the highest quality, and having the instructors that look like you and understand you and really can contribute to you culturally and knowledge and educationally, it's really just amazing. I think one of the things people say, you majored in mathematics? Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that inspired me is that I had Dr. Gathright, who was a woman that had her PhD in math that
Amazing.
looked like me. So,
Amazing.
yes, it's really motivating. But let's get into what
We,
we're
like we're gonna get into it, but I have to tell you that this bit of the conversation that we had is so important, so we can encourage folks, right? Because they'll try to distract you, and HBCUs have a lot of struggles, especially with like the public ones where the folks don't want to send them their money. See what's happening with Tennessee State University right now. So it's important to have this conversation to let folks know that the amazing education, and also let them know that most of the most successful people of color come out of HBCUs. Most Black professionals come out of HBCUs. So I'm like, let me tell you, like, I appreciate this part of the conversation. This is
and I just want to add that, so when we're talking about the legislature, a part of what I do, so I actually am the vice chair for the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, and that's where we have, and it's nonpartisan, so it's all Black elected senators or House representatives have the opportunity to be a part of this organization. And one of our biggest impacts that we do each and every session is to ensure that our Black universities, our HBCUs here in the state of Florida are receiving some of those dollars. And so a part of our fight in the legislature is to ensure that they're receiving their fair share.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. All right, so we did the introduction. There's probably a few more things you want to talk about, but tell us, like, you're a teacher, you're an educator. So one of the other things, we're like, what is it that a representative does, right? Because people hear these terms and they know y'all go there, but they're not sure what it is that you do. So can you spend a little bit of time explaining that?
Love to. So basically, what I try to keep it short, but to give you really detail, your representative is exactly what that word states. I am here to represent you. And so that's why it's so important for people to go to town hall meetings. It's important for people to come to my office. It's important for them to interact with me and engage with me, because I am here to represent you. So now, how do I do that? I do that in several ways. One, I have an office that actually sits in Miami Gardens. It's right next to St. Thomas. It's right along the Palmetto Expressway, but it's open to all of my constituents. And I have someone here, even when I'm in session, to address constituents' concerns. So you say, well, what kind of concerns would they may have? Say that you are having a challenge at, say, the driver's license plate. So I have actually done mobile driver's license units, because the driver's license plate is a state agency. And so my office is like a mediator, or someone that can help you to work through any state agencies. You might be a business owner and you might have some issues with the business professional regulations. You can reach out to my office. If you have something that's going on, corrections, as a state representative, I can go into any of our prisons at will. I don't have to make an appointment. I can just say, oh, I want to stop over here. And I have done that to see the conditions and to see what's going on there. We deal with the Department of Education, Economic Opportunity, anything that's a state agency, we have direct contact. So when I have constituents or residents, Floridians that are having some issues or some concerns, and they reach out to my office, I get their information. We have a process that I go through, and then I'm able to connect them and make sure that they're getting their issue resolved. So that's one component. Now, the other component, and a lot of people don't know that one, so I wanted to make sure I got that one out first. The other thing is, important. I do, exactly.
You're gonna get some calls about them driver's licenses, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's fine, because I am ready to start back. Before I went to Tallahassee last time, I did a couple of mobile units. I did one in Miramar, I did a couple in Pines, and I did some in Miami Gardens. So I get all three of my areas. And now that we're back home, I'm ready to get them started. So we are working on that. So if you're having a concern, reach out. But the other thing that we do is, so I travel back and forth to Tallahassee. And you say, well, why am I in Tallahassee? Well, we go to Tallahassee for committee weeks. We usually have about 6 weeks of committee weeks. And during that committee week time, we are looking at legislation to make Florida better. So, and that legislation takes part in two parts. One part has to do with appropriations. And so appropriations is where the money component comes in and it helps to fill up our budget. And then the other part is actually legislation that, if signed, will become law. And so we do that. So each one of the House members, myself, we get 7 bills that we can file each session. And then we work those bills. We're talking, we're on both sides. We're trying to get them agended through committee to be passed through the committee and then eventually get to the floor and heard. So though that's the main part of what we do. But in all of that, I want people to recognize I started off with, I am to represent you. So I'm your voice. So when I'm looking at legislation, I'm trying to find legislation that's going to make my community better. When I'm looking at appropriations, I'm trying to look at appropriations that I'm going to be able to bring money back home that's going to benefit our community. And so that's why I say I'm your voice. And that's why it's very important for you all to be engaged with me and to, or all of your representatives, so you can make sure that I'm representing you and getting exactly what you want and what you need.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, why is it that you decided to run? You've answered it in part because you said you wanted to, represent your community, and you also want to, be their voice in Tallahassee. We want to do a lot of good things in life. I'm like, yeah, I want to be great too. I'm like, but I don't know if I want to run for office. That's a tough decision to make. So why is it that you decided that would be the way that at this point in your life that you would make the contribution?
So what I would say is this: it's not something that I was like, I had a big desire to do forever and it was just my dream position. However, what I would say is that my entire life, I have always been a volunteer. My mom raised us as volunteer, was very heavy in church with different organizations growing up, always volunteer. So I truly believe that my purpose in life is to serve. How did I get into this? So I'll back it up a little bit. Like I told you, I majored in mathematics. So I wasn't even thinking about teaching, actually. I was going to go and get my master's in engineering. However, my servant heart, I said, I'm going to teach for 2 years. That's going to be my giving back to society as I work on my master's. When I started teaching, I was like, oh, I could do this. I taught in one of our inner city schools, and it was rewarding. So I say that to say that I've always wanted to help others. So coming back home, the city of Miami Gardens wasn't formed yet. We were unincorporated, and we had a process on how we needed to become a city. And so I played a part in knocking on doors, trying to get petition signed so that we can get on the ballot to become a city. So that's how I actually started getting into this arena. And still not thinking about running, but wanted to make sure that we were a city. Went on that. I participated. I was a volunteer for our first mayor, Shirley Gibson. I used to listen to her and talk to her and everything. And one day out of the blue, she asked me, we were driving back from somewhere. I was driving her back and I was giving my opinion. And she just out of the blue said, have you ever thought about running? And my first answer was, for what? She said, for office. I said, no, not at all. Because that's not what wasn't my desire. And so left it like that. I would say 2 weeks later, my house got broken into.
Oh, no.
And the community officer came out, and it was Officer Barney. And, they're doing their little thing and everything. And he said, you may want to start a crime watch. So, okay, that's something to help serve my community. So I started knocking on my neighbors' doors. And as I knocked on my neighbors' doors and I'm telling them that we need to start a crime watch and we're going to be meeting at my house and all of this stuff, when I was listening to them, because everybody, have a story on what's happening, in the back of my head kept on saying, you ever thought about running? And so
you planted that seed.
In every story, it was like something. So I prayed about it and I gave it some serious thought. And I think about a month after that, I decided to run. And my reason for running was I said, you know what? Sometimes you're in a community, you're in a position, and you always want to put it off on someone else to do.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to do it yourself.
Yes.
And I looked into what does it take to be elected. In my mind, early on, I thought you had to be an attorney or you had to be really into politics And I wasn't in it neither. I was just into my community.
Right.
But what I realized is that you have to just really be willing to do the work. And I was always about doing the work. And you got to be willing to sit down and read those agendas and be smart and learn things that you might not know about, but you're smart enough to figure it out and make sure that what you're doing and what you're voting on is going to support the people. And so my first elected position was in the city of Miami Gardens. I served there for 8 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then now to move it forward, how did I get to the state? Well, while I was on the council in the city, I served on what we call the Miami-Dade League of Cities. And that's an organization that has all of the cities within the county. We meet once a month. And we talk about legislation and we talk about how we can make the whole county better within our different cities and things like that. And one of the things that kept coming up was there would be legislation from the state that would preempt the cities, the local government. It would stop us from doing some of the things that we knew was beneficial for our residents. And that used to just bother me. And so the more it happened, the more I said, you know what? I need to run for state because I need to make sure that we have elected officials at the state level that understands local government so that we can work together. So that was my premise. You know, I need to go up there to ensure that they're not continuously creating stuff or putting hindrance on what we need here for our residents local, because I do believe government starts local. You know, it's
it is. All politics are local to me. Exactly. You know, people are always worried about the president. I'm like, you need to worry about who's going to fix that pothole on your street first.
We have to worry about all of it. Yes. So I started there, and because of things that was happening at the state level, it encouraged me to go to the state. And it's different. It's definitely different. It's definitely partisan. Whereas in local government, when we created ordinances or laws, it was just because it was going to make our residents happy and it was going to be beneficial for our residents. There is not always like that. You can know that something is going to be beneficial, but because if the right person didn't file it or, you know, it doesn't happen. So that took a learning curve for me to get used to it and figure out how I can make these people understand that, hey, this is about Floridians in general, you know. Right. But I got that under my belt now. And I'm moving forward. And although I don't get everything I want, and I try to, I do definitely believe that I'm making an impact, and I'm seeing things that are moving in the direction that they need to.
So I do have to ask, were you able to have any influence or impact on the state laws that were going to affect your cities? Were you ever able to be a part of that particular process? And since, you know, that was one of the motivations for you going there, were you able to get involved and be like, listen, y'all don't want to do this because this is how it's actually going to help folks? Because, you know, they have all these things in their mind. And sometimes they don't think it all the way through. Because, you know, there's some legislation. I'm like, did y'all think this passed? You know, your emotions, did you get out your feelings and then think about what it was going to do? You know, so were you know, just all that to say, were you able to have any influence on that part?
So yes, I have. You know, you might not get it stopped completely, but I've been able to get input where it didn't be as bad as it used to be, and as they wanted it to be, because you know, you talk and you tell them, look, this is not going to turn out the way you think it is. You're going to have unintended consequences here. But what I found, so like even just to talk about one particular piece of legislation, I can't think of the number, but one bill that they was doing last year where they were saying that you couldn't use state money. It was something that they didn't want you to do. You couldn't do it. They didn't want you to do it at all. But then we got it down to where you couldn't do it only if you were using state money. If you was using your local dollars, you still can't do it. So we give them a lot of pushback. And like I said, you don't always get everything you want, but that's where you get to make that impact. And you say, look, let's tone this back a little bit. You get to stop.
That's important, and that's a win, because you know, when I was going to court all the time, every now and then, you know, there's a lot of different outcomes, you know, and sometimes probation is better than prison. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you still got convicted, but at least you're gonna be able to go home today. You know what I mean? Exactly. So we definitely understand, and we can always put that in perspective. So you don't always have to get all the way there, but there are times where what you did get is way better than what it could have been. And so we definitely appreciate you for all that. So you did mention some of the committees that you were on. What else? Is there any of them that you want to talk about and highlight to the people?
So your committees can change each session. And I've been on several. My favorite has been healthcare. I'm not on it this year, but I was on it the first session. And then children, family, senior subcommittee. I'm still on that one. I'm actually the ranking member there. And I'm very passionate about that. But just to give you a rundown of all my committees, I'm on children, family, seniors, and subcommittee. I'm on state administration and technology appropriation subcommittee. I'm on infrastructure strategies committee, state affairs committee, ethics, elections, and open government, and then infrastructure and tourism appropriations. So those are my 6 committees that I'm on. So it keeps me pretty busy because when you're on the committees, outside of you just meeting, you have agendas that come out. Right. With these bills and stuff, and you're trying to read them, and then you'll read one bill, and then they'll do an amendment or what they call a strike all, and then you got to try to catch up to figure out, okay, what did they change? So they do keep you busy. But I would say my favorite 2 out of the ones that I have right now, of course, like I stated before, is children, families, and seniors. So that's pretty much, we work a lot with DCF and working with children that's in foster care, making up how is that looking. And that has always been a major passion for me, our children's. And then we do stuff with the seniors, and those 2 are really, really important to me. And then, of course, infrastructure. Infrastructure is, we're working because, hey, if we don't have the infrastructure, then we don't have what? Nothing, because it's going to all collapse.
So there's word on the street, and I don't know if it's for sure, is that there's some infrastructure money that came from the federal government that our governor is refusing to take. I don't know if that's true. That might have been some old news. Is that still news? Is that accurate information?
I don't think that happened this session. I think that was a part of last session thing. I would say this session, I believe the thing that he did not take was, which I think he tried to circle back and take, and I would have to follow up, was dealing with the federal money that they were giving for lunch, feeding kids during the summer. Initially, he didn't want to take that. No, he didn't take it. And so, yeah, he has some issues. And it's so interesting. And it's very interesting because it seems like a lot of times if you pay attention, and I'm going to say this again, if you pay attention, you will see that in the legislature, a lot of things are so hypocritical. Meaning they'll take federal money when it benefits something that they want to do. But then, when the federal money is coming in for things that's going to actually help communities that's underserved or, may need it. Oh, no, we don't need that money.
Right. But, so I hear what you say. So one of the things that's, I hate using the word interesting because it really doesn't, you should explain why something is interesting. The way they were putting a spin on not taking that money, said, oh no, they're going to try to give them food that's going to make the children fat and it's unhealthy and all of this type of stuff, right? So they present it as though it's a bad thing when it's really a good thing. And I'm like, it's amazing how they're able to spin their bad behavior. At least that's how I see it. I'm not putting those words in your mouth.
And so what I say is, so let me tell you what I say. What I call it is, they're very strategic.
Okay.
Something that, I truly believe that we need to get better at. They are very strategic on how they message.
Yes.
Very strategic on the whole plan. And it's not a plan that is just like one focus. They will have, they want to get something done. They'll have this part going over here. We have this part going over here. And we have this part going over here. And each one of them will have their own distinct message to counter what it really is.
What it really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I try to do is I try to educate people on those points and call it, make you see really what it is. But again, that's why I said we have to be engaged. We have to be engaged.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things that I could just go off on tangents. One of the things I said, when I decided to run, I always look at numbers because data matters. Data is real, it's factual. I think I did well in math, mainly because it wasn't subjective. You know, you write an essay and you have all the grammar correct, but the teacher says, no, you should have said it like this. And I'm like, it's my words. I want to say it this way.
That's right.
But with math,
Yeah.
you follow those rules and it is what it is, and it's going to always be that way.
Yeah.
I like that. So I say that to say when I ran in 2020, and I just said, let me look up the numbers. And when I looked up the numbers, we literally had more registered Democrats in the state of Florida than we had Republicans in 2020. In 2020,
yeah.
Yeah. And but yet for the last 25 plus years, we've had more, we've been, majority has been Republican. Mm-hmm. And it made me question, why is that? And it's not that we didn't have the people registered. It's not that we didn't have the people registered to vote. It was the thing of getting people out to vote.
Yeah.
And so I would love to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm going to stay in line with my questions. So
we talk about solutions, right? So that's one of the things that's going to be part of the solutions when we wrap it all up. That we got to come back and say, how is it that what can we do to get this engagement? Because we need it. You'll hear the stuff that like, oh, if all the folks in Broward County voted, we really could take the state. But then when you see what the turnout is in Broward County, you like. But then that's the whole thing about give them a reason to come out. You know what I mean?
Okay, so there you go. We're going to talk about
everybody bad. Give me a reason to come out.
So, that's where the strategy comes in and the messaging comes in.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So we're talking about bills, right? So do you want to talk about some of the ones that you either put forth or co-signed, signed on, put forward, and then what it is that we're looking to? I know some things started today. Typically they start July the 1st. I don't know what the rush was on that one, but apparently there was one. So let's talk about some of what you did and then educate us on like the bills that came out this session, what we need to look out for.
So I'm going to first tell you all the bills that I actually filed because I wanted you to understand I usually file, like I said earlier, I filed bills that I truly believe is going to have an impact on my community. So the first bill I filed was HB 47. It was a municipal water and sewer utility rate bill. And this bill is to actually correct an unintended consequence with the residents in the city of Miami Gardens. To give you a short thing, what this bill was going to do, and it literally passed the House. It got stuck on the Senate side, but we're going to file it again and we're going to push it forward. Right now, we're in a situation where the state legislature or the state law statute says that if you are a municipality that serves water to another municipality, you can charge them up to a 25% surcharge. Well, and that's happening, but okay, so and it's fairly so because if you're serving another municipality, it might be because you had to run pipes from your city to their city, and you had to do infrastructure and things to actually get the water there. So that's why that was allowed. However, in one of my districts, that's not the case. In the city of Miami Gardens, the water plant literally sits in our city with all of the infrastructure, underground, everything. It sits in our city. But the utility plant is owned by the city of North Miami Beach. Now you say, how did that happen?
Yeah, tell me.
Because remember, we didn't get incorporated until 2003. Yeah. So this happened when we were unincorporated.
Unincorporated, okay.
So they have it. So what my bill was asking was that they would charge our residents the same fee that they charge their residents. It didn't say that you couldn't charge a surcharge. It just said that if you're going to charge one, you have to charge your residents that too. Because in actuality, you're taking the water out of Miami Gardens back to your residents in North Miami Beach. So it's really a cost for you to get the water over there, not to get the water where it's already at.
So is this something that's going to be permanent, or is there like a lease and it expires at some point? Because it seemed like so that must have been a miss. Okay, so yeah, because I feel like that might have been a miss when the city was getting incorporated. I don't know, like that just
wasn't a miss. So what happened was initially the utilities were all private.
Okay,
they were all private, and when the private companies decided to, I guess, get rid of them, the county took some, Opelika took a plant, and North Miami Beach bought this plant because I guess it was the closest one to them. The only thing that was done legal wise, I think the county did eminent domain a couple of properties for them to make it bigger. So that's only way that the government got involved. But though they bought the plant. And so that's fine. One of the things that I think, which we are looking to legally, so I don't want to get too much into that. But yeah. So it's some things that's going on. But what my legislation was doing was to correct the unintended consequences. So like I said, the statute says if you're servicing another city, you can charge up to a 25% surcharge. But that was done because the thought was you're going to be doing infrastructure to get that water to the city. That's not the case here.
And the plant is still considered Miami Gardens. Like it's in Miami Gardens.
And so I actually had one of the chair of the committee. He came down. He's he actually good friend, colleague. He came down because he stays in North Florida, but he was the chair of the committee that needed that this bill was going to go through. He literally came down and drove the district with me so that he can see it for himself. And you can see it's in the middle of a community. So the same people that they're charging this 25% surcharge is the same people that's inconvenienced anytime they're doing any kind of construction there, or, they're getting inconvenienced. So they're paying for inconvenience, it's really sad. So, and it's been going on for years. Even when I was on the city council, we've been fighting this. And so we were almost there this year because I got a lot on both sides where really, so I said like, it passed the House, but because of politics, they stopped it on the Senate.
Okay.
Which is a mistake. But we bringing it back. So watch out. It's coming back. Okay. Another one was HB 325, which was a task force for missing and murdered African-American women and girls. So I reached out to FDLE and we looked at the numbers of how the number, we did compare numbers on the rate of how Black women go missing and are murdered compared to others. And it was like 45%.
Wow.
Where we're only 15% of the population. So that's huge. So I was asking, which I will bring this one back to you. It didn't move this year, but I did get the conversation started. And that's something that's important too. Sometimes you might not always pass the bill, and it might not even always pass when you're there. But having the conversation and talking to the different legislators and stuff about it is a major impact because that's how you get things to move. So we're going to continue that conversation. The next one that I had that actually moved also was HB 349. And this was a sickle cell care management and treatment education for medical professionals. And, in our community, sickle cell has been around for years and they are making a lot of improvements. However, I work with an organization called ASAP, which is a sickle cell community. It's the people that actually go through it, sickle cell patients and their caregivers. And one of their major challenges outside of getting medication and finding the right doctor is that when they're in crisis and they go to an emergency room, a lot of times they're mistreated. And they're mistreated because basically the medical staff don't understand the disease because it's not their specialty. And they're in the emergency room. So what this bill was asking is, just like attorneys have to take, continuing education courses, of course, medical people do too. And I know that for a fact because my mom was a nurse. So I was asking for them to create a continuing education course on sickle cell that when they renew their license, they would have to take just a 2-hour course that they would have to take so that they would at least have the basis of what's happening in hopes that it would allow them to treat these patients a little better.
And did that one pass?
Well, so it on the House, it passed. It passed its committees. It didn't make it to the floor because, again, politics. And we could talk a little.
Okay, so that we got a solution. We got to get people in there that understands this, right? Like this is that whole thing about healthcare disparity. That's part of that conversation too. Yeah. That's that healthcare disparity conversation.
So the other one I had was HB 445, which is a water safety for K through 12 instruction. I just believe that I was a child and I had a cousin that was 3 years younger than me drown. This past year, last year, we had a set of twins. They were of Haitian descent.
Right.
Exactly. Drowned.
Yes, I heard about that.
Every year, across the state of Florida, we have kids drowning. And I just don't understand why, because we know we're surrounded by water.
Yes.
We're in a state that is full of heat, that people have pools, we have lakes, we have canals. I just believe that this should be a part of our physical education courses. Water safety and teaching them how to actually swim. Why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah, so my children we're in Broward, right? And my kids, I don't know if it was like kindergarten or first grade or something. They had like it was like a week or two that they had a swimming class. So I don't know if is that something that's not countywide, or is it something?
No, okay. It's not countywide, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make it statewide, so that we can try to save some lives. Anytime we can save a kid's life or anyone's life is beneficial. So
that definitely should be something. Like I said, I remember that they did it. It was like a whole week. They went back for it, at least made them water safe, right? So that was one of the things that they were concerned about. Some came out swimming, others, at least they know what to do, learn how to float, turn over. Turn over and that type of thing. So if that didn't get through the Senate, I need you to keep doing that one, because that's important.
I'm And then the next one was HB 681, and this was an online registration database. And the first time I filed it, so I switched up this year. First time I filed it, it was filed as a bill, so that, because a couple of years ago we had this big mix-up, which I don't really think was a mix-up, where you had our returning citizens being arrested after they registered to vote, and they were given a voter's registration card and all of that. So this was I am asking for them to create a database where all of the information will be in one place, and they can determine whether these citizens are eligible for a voter registration or not. It didn't pass when I had it as a bill. So this time I was asking, and the part of why it didn't pass as a bill, because it was an issue on where do you have this database, in which department does it actually
stores it?
Exactly, because it has so many different components or whatever. So what I did this time was I said, okay, well, we're not going to make it as a bill because we're not sure exactly what. Let's have a study. I would like for you all to have a study done to determine what are the components we need, how much money would we need, where will it be, who's going to operate it, and all of that. So those were the bills that I filed. Some of them, started making its way. They didn't come across the finish line, but what I would say is each one of them had great conversations and things where I can see that we're making leeway and that we will be moving forward. I put this note on there too. A lot of times, being that we are in the super minority, a lot of times bills don't pass under our name, but you see bits and pieces, or sometimes the whole bill in another bill by my colleague. But for me, it really doesn't matter, because as long as it's going to benefit the people of Florida, I can support it.
Yeah, and that's important, and those are all like amazing issues, and I hope and I know you will continue. There's probably going to be more things that's going to be needed. However, like, these are all good things that I think if we these solutions that you're going to put out there, people follow through with them, you may have a better chance of all of that happening. So one of the things I suspect you had to do, especially if they made it through the House, was that you had to work across the aisle, because you said it was a super minority. How is that, and how important is it to be able to do that?
Well, it's very important, especially with the way the numbers are. We have 120 representatives in the House. However, we only have, it's 85 to 35. We have 35 Democrat representatives. So numbers matter. Point blank. I told you I'm a numbers person. Numbers matter. So in order to get a vote, majority wins, right? So you have to be able to talk to your colleagues, help them to get an understanding, help them to be able to make things relatable. A lot of times, because you come from different culture, because you come from different neighborhoods, what matters to my people or the people in my community may not matter. That is not an issue for that other community. So it's a matter of building that relationship and talking to them and allowing them to actually see. Like I said, with it was Representative Jen Lobato. He was the chair of the committee, and he lives up in, I don't know, somebody in North Florida. So my water bill issue wasn't a concern for him. But I was able to connect with him He literally came down here one day, came to my office. We got in the car together and we drove over there to the water plant. I allowed him to see that it was in the middle. It was surrounded by residents. He got to see North Miami Beach name on the building, you know, and I explained to him, we talk about the infrastructure, you know, how the pipes are under this ground. The water is under this, you know. So when we went back to Tallahassee, it was a no-brainer. Right?
Yeah.
Because he understood, he saw it for himself, what was happening. So I do a lot of that. I can tell you another one in Pines. We have a area where
but you're on the east side of Pines, right? East Miramar and East Pines, because I live west, and I'm in Barterman's district.
Yeah, so I stopped like at 75. Well, not even quite 75. Like you know that. I can't think of the avenue, but I split, me and Barterman splits Century Village. So the
Flamingo.
Village, yeah. Well, it's not Flamingo. Flamingo is further up. But Century Village, when you if you driving through Century Village, like so everything.
That's 145th. Is that near where the new mall is?
And where the BJ's? Okay, exactly. So, but I literally the actual center. I have when you drive in it, I have everything to the east of it, and she has everything to the west of it.
Okay.
So that's a good way to figure it out.
Yeah, that's near 145th.
But I have so in Miramar though, I have Huntington. I go all the way up to 75.
Oh yeah, Huntington is right on the other side of 75.
That's my district.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of Broward.
Yeah, that's a lot of that's right there.
And I make my rounds.
Yeah.
So but what I would say is, so working across the aisle is very important. What I was about to tell you is I had another representative that's on the other side of the aisle, Vicky Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And doing a lot of stuff with, these condo associations and these townhomes association, whatever, I had to talk to her a lot about that and trying to get, and telling her what some of my residents was experiencing, going out there, taking pictures and sending them to her. And so in some of the legislation that she filed this year that I believe actually passed, I don't know if it's signed yet, is addressing homeowners associations when it comes to, them and their fees and meetings and things like that. And so,
when you said of fees, because what you mean? When they get them lawyers to charge, like you owe $30 and all of a sudden you owe $6,000? Is that what?
You definitely. That's things that. Well, one of the things that we did, and it didn't get into what the fees was, but it makes sure that they have to be very transparent. Meaning they have to do these notices like they supposed to.
The actual association.
The actual association.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And then when they have the agenda, they need to notice that agenda. You all need to know what's on it. When you're looking at you all's budget thing, they can't be having a select small group that's doing it. Everybody has a well, I'm just telling you, this is not.
I'm smiling because I'm like, it is a small group, and then they go like switch up all the stuff, and next thing you know, I'm sure that's somebody's cousin or somebody.
But I'm saying exactly, even when that work. And so now they're saying no, all that has to be transparent.
Okay.
So and if they're not doing that, that's the new law. I mean, I don't think, like I said, I'm not sure if he signed it yet, but that legislation, but that all has come from me going to different developments and listening to what they're saying and saying, hey, this is not right.
Yeah, I'm in an association, and I'm telling you, and so I also so I have a condo this is in Dania Beach though, and because of what happened at what's the one in Aventura North in Sunny Isle. Condo collapse, right? So it was an older building, so there was all of these changes and the 40-year inspection, blah 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 blah. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm like, but we got a 2-story building. I don't know what we need to do all that for. And we literally got a 10-year, like they give us like whatever the add-on is to the associate. I'm like 10 years. Like,
so if I'm not mistaken, and I got to get you some numbers and we can connect on this, because I know that they were talking about if it was a 2-story building, changing some of that, so that it didn't have the same requirements as 3-story and above.
Yeah, because we have an assessment, and I'm like, this is a 2-story building. What do I need to be paying you all this money for 10 years for? What did y'all do? So yes, that's that. And you made a point about like how like there are some differences depending on where it is that you live in the state, what your socioeconomic status is, your background, and everything. However, there are some things that it messes with everybody, right?
Yeah.
And my thing is like the cost of insurance, right?
Yes.
Like that's one of those things where I'm like, I don't understand how y'all can't get on the same page with this, because no matter who you are, what you make, if you own any property up in this here state right now, you got some sticker price shock.
So let me tell you where I am at on that. So right now, for I think like not this session, but the 3 sessions before then, we have given insurance companies, I think around about $3 billion, for reinsurance. And I'm not saying that we didn't need to give them something, because reinsurance is real. We do need to stabilize them. However, there was legislation that was filed on the Democratic side that could have also released some of the Floridians that was not heard. And I say that all the time, because it was filed, but they wouldn't hear it in committee, so it didn't happen. And I think that people need to know that, because like you said, insurance affects everybody. So when I'm talking to some of my friends that are Republican, I tell them when they're talking about, I said, did you check how your representative vote on that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because yes, you need to hold them accountable, because a lot of times they end up looking out for a corporation or a big business and are not looking out for the everyday Floridian.
That votes for them. That votes for them. And like you said, people should look at that, because at the end of the day, these folks who continue to do what it is that the corporations want, it's not enough people in those corporations to vote for you, right? So if people are really paying attention and they see what you're doing, you can lose your job. And some of them should, because when I tell you, this is like, these numbers are like
on too long, and it's affecting too many Floridians.
Yes.
And even I would even go
leaving the state.
Well, but let me share this with you. And this is why I say people got to pay attention. I remember when they did the preemption on the ordinances, where I know Broward County had it, Dade County had it, where when it comes to rent, you couldn't just raise your rent sky high. You had to give notice or whatever. And they did away with we can't say nothing to a landlord on how they do their rent. Well, when we were talking on the floor, and one of the representatives asked, well, why are we doing this? People can't afford to live. And one of my Republican colleagues said, and I quote, then they should move somewhere else. Now, where do you think an elected person should do that?
Especially if you got people that's living where you were elected who can't afford to live there no more. So you want everybody to move out? Like, that's
so
crazy.
When you said, and what prompted me to say that is when you said they have people moving. Yeah, there are people moving, but then they're being very strategic and targeted on trying to bring people into the state. So it's like exactly. So we need to pay that attention, because it's not right. It's not fair. And there is no way in the world that you should have someone that's elected by the people saying that people, if they can't afford to do something, they should be. We're supposed to be there solving problems, not creating problems.
Exactly.
We're supposed to be there standing up for the people, not just saying, well, hey, I'll just get some other people to stand up for. And so I tell people, but why they do this? Why? Because they're in Tallahassee and people are not paying attention.
Exactly.
So they can say whatever. Nobody's not going to see it.
So tell them to watch the FloridaChannel.org and see what they say.
Florida, I tell people they should get on there. You ain't got nothing to do. Watch the Florida
play in the background.
I said, and I feel like, people should be clipping it and putting it on TikTok and Facebook and stuff to let other people know, look, this is what this person is saying. Do you really want, and who is he representing? Who is she representing? Is she representing me? Because when you can just say anything out your mouth and then still want people to vote for you.
Yeah, it's an issue. And the ones and the folks who are mainly affected are our elderly population. My mother's 80 years old. She's going to be 81 in July. And because she lives in Little Haiti. That's one of the neighborhoods that they're gentrifying it. And there's a whole bunch of Airbnbs over there, and they're trying to move everybody out. And so her taxes, her insurance, all of it is like, it's staggering what she has to pay. And my mother was a maid. It's not like she had a professional job with a really nice retirement. Literally, what she gets does not cover her expenses. Thankfully, she was a smart woman and she bought a duplex and not just a regular house that she has tenants that can help out. But it's incredible, like what's happening. I'm like, even if you don't want to care about everybody, and when they're talking about those people who they say should move out, it's the elderly population that's the most affected. Yeah. Where are they going to move to? They've lived in this place 40, 50, 60, 70 years, all their life, and you're telling them to go move somewhere?
They have a fixed income. Nobody can go buy nothing. You can't. People that
go
have a job
nowhere.
can't afford to go buy nothing new.
Yeah.
I get so mad when those people come calling me talking about, do you want to sell your house? I said, did I call you?
Exactly. No. I get those calls too. I'm like, I'm gonna go sell my house, and my children don't want to move to Alabama because that's probably the only place I can afford right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, and they're like, we're not going there. So I'm like, all right, I gotta wait till 2027 when they graduate, and maybe we can go. You know, maybe I can go because apparently they ain't gonna go with me. But that's the whole thing. Like, you sell it and go live where? Like, it's a nuts. So that's just one example of one of the things that I think. If there are elected officials who really went there to represent the people is telling them that, the guy in New York, you say like the rent's too damn high or something like that. Well, the insurance here is too high. It is absolutely too high. So yeah, thank you for that, and and informing us of all the things that you're doing and how it is that the importance of working across the aisle. And the man who came to look to see, more of them need to do that, right? Because sometimes it's just that it's such a disconnect. They're so distant from what's going on, like they can't. You would hope that if they had a little bit of compassion, once they see it, they'll be like, oh, so this is really what's happening. And it would make, hopefully make some better decisions, some better decisions. So some of the bills, one of them became law today.
Yes.
We're talking about the 6-week abortion ban in the state. There's some other parts of that, but that's the more important. So tell us about, you could talk about that first if you want to, and tell us about some of the other laws that came out of some of the other bills that became law out of the last session that folks need to look out for, and maybe try to advocate to maybe change during the next session.
So yes, so now today, taking effect May the 1st, is the 6 weeks abortion ban. And where I stand on this is, because everybody doesn't believe in abortion, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make people understand that this is not just about abortion. This is about your right. Your right about your body. Point blank. And where I stand on here is, with them doing this or enforcing this, where does it stop? Where does it stop? If you let this go on, where they can continuously try to determine what type of health care you're going to choose for your body, one day they can say, well, you a cancer patient, but because you Indian, we're not going to give you this medication.
Mm-hmm.
Or because you this, we're not going to do that. We can't start that. But what I will say is, although it goes in effect today, we do have a saving grace. The people of Florida has begun to speak, and we need more of this. We did a ballot initiative that passed, and so we're going to have the opportunity in November to do what the people of Florida want. And that would be, we're going to have an opportunity to address this abortion bill, because we're going to have the opportunity to take it back to what it was when it was written in the Constitution, before the Supreme Court, said, hey, let states decide. Exactly. And so I believe that that's very, very important. But what I really, really want to point out in this important fact is that, remember, you didn't just get to put this on the ballot because you said, oh, I want to put it on the ballot. It took thousands. I can't remember the exact number, but it took a lot of people signing petitions to get this on the ballot. And then they still tried to stop it. It had to go through the court to ensure that the language was clear and that this wasn't going to confuse anyone, so that you can actually make the choice that you believe is right and fair for all Floridians. Right. Give them a choice.
And that's being called the abortion ban, but I just want people to also understand that that's not the only thing it's about. It's really about reproductive rights, right? Yes. Because people say that, and then it'll turn off some folks, right? But there are parts of this that's dealing with people who have that's doing IVF.
That's why I said healthcare. Yeah. That's why I related the thing to like cancer, something that you can get. Where do we stop if we start allowing them to legislate around any type of health care? what you can receive and what you can't receive, what you can do and what you can't do, where does it stop? They can decide, well, you're a diabetic, but you're over the age of 80, so we no longer gonna let you get insulin.
Exactly.
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, it sounds crazy. And this is, we should not let legislators make healthcare decisions. These are decisions that we made with doctors. And we in Florida, I remember when HMOs became a thing, right? Like I remember when I was in my 20s, I had like a regular job, and I had Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO, which was probably like the best insurance that you could have in the streets, right? And then now all of a sudden, then I remember when the HMOs came and they gave healthcare and insurance to business people. People can't tell me that if you've been working long enough, you know that was a terrible mistake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even today, I had to take my children to the doctor, and we went from practically having no copay to $100 copay for them to go get their physicals. I'm like, this is getting to the point where and I pay like a hefty premium every month. I was like, on top of that, you want me to have $100 copay? That's when you have people that are in a space that they don't belong. So legislators don't belong in a space of healthcare, or at least making healthcare decisions for people. Now you can legislate maybe some policy, procedure, process, or something, but not ultimately making healthcare decisions for folks, because that's not what shouldn't be.
I think a lot of times they have their hands in the pocket. They have some type of connection to the people, so they're trying to make sure that they get the most of their money, and it's just wrong.
Yeah.
But so that's why I say we got to be careful on that. But to talk about something, so that bill, you're going to have the opportunity to correct it, and I pray. I'm going to fight. I'm going to walk and knock on doors. I hope everybody comes out and do that. We also have the opportunity with the marijuana bill. It's been being debated for a long time, whether it should be, whether it shouldn't be. There are so many people that's incarcerated now because they were smoking marijuana. And I just think that when being in the United States, to have some states have it allowed and some states don't have it allowed, come on, people. We need to get in uniform and tax it, like do the same thing you did when it's alcohol. Just go ahead and tax it and make it up, because that's not something that people should be being criminalized.
Right. And so that's Amendment 3 on the ballot. The reproductive rights one is Amendment 4, right? Exactly. And so and I agree with you that we definitely need to do that with Amendment 3, because there's a lot of other ways. Because when Hawaii, got rid stopped criminalizing marijuana, they ended up making a decision to vacate all those old convictions. That can have a really big impact. Major impact. And it should. Yes.
And so, but now I want to talk about some other bills that definitely is going to have an impact on local governments and local. And the first one I want to talk about is HB 433. This was an employment regulation bill. And this bill, I spoke against it. I debated on it. And I just think that it is so inhumane. I believe that it's unethical. It's just wrong, but they did it anyway. And why is because it preempts local governments to have any type of ordinance with businesses on heat exposure. It preempts them from having any control on local wage. You know how sometimes if you're getting a contract with Miami-Dade County or Broward County, they will have something in there saying that you have to, if you get the bid, they looking out for
the workers.
For the workers, living wage. We do a living wage thing because it's more expensive to live in Broward County or Dade County than it is to live in Alachua.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? So we look at things like that and we try to give benefit protections. However, this particular bill provokes that. It will not allow. It's against and it becomes effective July the 1st.
July 1st,
local governments can no longer do that.
When she's talking about heat exposure, that's like roofers, people working in like warehouses,
contract workers,
contractors. This is serious stuff. It could be 100, feel like 104 around here sometimes.
Exactly. Oh. And then it definitely affects them, and that can be anybody. But then let's talk about our farmers in Homestead. We have people that's down there picking our oranges and grapefruits that is in his work that we won't do.
Okay.
I'm just gonna keep it honest.
That's
You
funny.
know, I probably do it because I'll do anything. I mean, I ain't gonna say
Yeah.
anything. I won't do anything, but I'll work. If
Yeah.
I need to, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get it done.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so that's a horrible bill. They have another one that this one is housing. This one was, I had mixed feelings on this one, but ultimately, I think it was okay. Doing housing for legally verified agricultural workers. So it did have a bill that they put in place. If this one is SB 1082, that it makes it easier for you to provide housing for seasonal agricultural workers while softening the local preemptions, on it. So I thought that
Explain
one.
that. So what does that mean? Because I know so that's usually like in rural communities. So in a lot of rural communities, we have
even like
workers
in
that come in.
Homestead.
Yeah.
So that in Miami-Dade County it's very expensive to live here. But if you're a farmer, it's gonna be difficult for you to get to be getting a pay because you're picking, you're picking vegetables and stuff, and the pay is not that good. And then for you to go out there and trying to pay rent. So what it's going to allow to do is for that business owner to actually build housing or have housing on their property that they can charge you a lower amount of rent because you work there and provide a place for you to stay.
Okay, so I do some stuff in some rural communities. That is something that Big Sugar did. Like out in Belglade, Clewiston, out in that area, is that a lot of folks didn't live in the area and they built the housing for the folks that
that's what they're looking at. And I had mixed feelings on it I got mixed feelings on it too. I was very transparent.
Yes.
And I had mixed feelings on it because it reminded me of slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, so I ain't gonna try to hide it from you. However, when we talk to actual people, agricultural workers, a lot of them are suffering.
They're okay
because they're not getting enough.
They're okay with it. Like they're
okay because they're not getting enough money, and we can't tell them how much to pay them, and so they getting a little bit of money, and then they ain't got nowhere to stay. So it's like a catch-22.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Want to get a few others in here. This one here, I didn't like this one here. This one was HB 60601, which is doing away with local government oversight boards for police and sheriffs. So, now the local, the people in the community you can't say nothing. They can just do what they want to do.
So every session since 2020, they've been taking away one thing or another. First, it was like the protest. Then you can't video. Then it was like you couldn't videotape.
You can't videotape.
Videotape them.
And they even made that. They went more on that one. I think it's 25 feet now, and it's not just 25 feet from the officer that's dealing with the person. It's 25 feet from any officers that are there. So basically, they said y'all ain't gonna videotape.
Y'all ain't videotaping nothing. Exactly. Can you imagine?
The last one I'm going to do, I know it's about time for us to wrap up, but I want to do this one.
Yes.
This was HB 1365, unauthorized public camping and public sleeping.
Yeah.
You heard about that one?
I heard about one. That's the house. That's
the bill
the homeless folks campers.
Exactly. Prohibits a county or municipality from authorizing or otherwise allowing any person from regularly engaging in public camping or sleeping on public property, public buildings, or public right-of-ways under the county jurisdiction, unless the county designate property for such purposes. So basically, they're saying that they're making it illegal for homeless people to sleep anywhere. So, yeah. And there's so much more, but I want to tell you this. So people, you can find this on my website. As I have a lot of bills, every session I do what I call Felicia fact sheet.
Okay, I'm gonna so tell me your website so I can add it in and it'll come up.
Well, it's not on my website. Just go to my Facebook page, Rep Felicia Robinson. Go to my Twitter, whatever, And I just keep these up there, and it gives a list of bills
Mhm.
that I just really think that we should know about. Like the one is another one, HB3, which online protection for minors. And you see how they named that, right? But
Mhm.
really, we talk about parents' right, but really they're taking parents' rights away now,
Away,
because now
yeah,
your
yeah.
child can't be on social media.
Oh yeah, that's a TikTok ban, right?
Well, no, the TikTok ban came from the federal government.
Oh,
This
the
is
federal
social
did. Oh,
media.
the feds did that.
Yeah, this here is social media, period.
Oh,
Um, this was an interesting one for me that I feel they're going to have some unintended consequences. It was HB 931, school chaplains.
mm.
It allows public and charter schools to let a volunteer chaplain provide certain services to students.
Ooh.
So what are the certain services? And how do you get how do you know what this chaplain is saying to this child? So had a lot of pushback on that one. And then this is one, I think one of the questions you had sent over to me that you were going to ask me was, do I ever have to explain my vote? And I want to
Yes,
actually talk
yes, yes,
about
yes.
that.
Because we were gonna, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was interesting because I just got to explaining my vote like last week or earlier or this weekend on Facebook, on Instagram about HB 919.
Okay.
And that was the artificial intelligence in political advertising bill.
Mm.
And so what this bill was doing was, it says it requires that a political advertisement generated using artificial intelligence must include a prominently displayed disclaimer notifying the audience that it was made in whole or part by using artificial intelligence. So when I read that, it sounds like, well, that's not a bad bill, right? And it's not in general. However, where I had issues with and why I voted no is because it has criminal penalties attached to it. And I wouldn't mind it having criminal penalties attached to it if you know it intentionally. But what I had asked was, and I asked the actual representative that filed the bill, that if they were to put something in, so say I'm running for office, but I'm using Jack's campaign,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
And they're creating, my flyers and stuff like that, and they use AI. And they don't tell me that they're using AI. They don't tell me they're using AI, and they don't put the stuff on there saying that, hey, AI was used, and then someone come and say, ooh, this was AI, then I can be criminally penalized for it. So my suggestion was that it should be some accountability on the actual creator.
Yeah.
Saying that they have to let us know. They didn't want to do that.
They didn't want to do that.
No. So I voted no.
You can pay someone and then they sabotage you.
Basically. Right? Wow. So I voted no on that. A lot of people voted yes, because I said in general, when you read the bill, and this again, being strategic, it sounds good. Yeah, we want a disclaimer. Mm-mm. But when you attach criminal penalties to it,
no,
it takes it to a different level.
It does.
Exactly.
And I know someone who had some flyers printed, and the person messed up. Like, they made mistakes on there. So and it seemed like it was intentional, because it was like one of those strategic kind of mistakes, like how you made that mistake, right? So again, someone can easily put you in a very difficult situation.
And
so
then you can be criminally penalized.
Okay. So I know you said you had another engagement. However, we got to talk about solutions. I don't know if you want to spend like 5 minutes.
Yeah, we want to talk about solutions.
What's the solutions? How can we make this better? How can we go from 35 Democrats to at least like maybe 55?
First solution is, and this is something I say all the time, and I want to say it again. We have to get engaged. Mm-hmm. So I've been using this message for like the last couple of years, saying Florida is mine. Mm-hmm. If you go on, Florida is mine. That's the MINE. And I say it's mine because when I own something, I'm going to be engaged in it. I'm going to be willing to protect it. I'm going to be willing to fight for it. I'm going to know everything about it because it's mine. You were talking about your kids earlier. They're yours. So you take full what? Ownership.
Yes.
We have to start thinking of Florida in that light. Each and every last one of us. For far too long, we have not looked at Florida as ours. People always are saying, I don't really want to get involved in politics.
You need to.
But you see, politics gets involved in you every day. When you're talking
Every
about
day.
property insurance, that's politics. When you're talking about your rent going up, that's politics. When you're talking about what can be taught in your school, when you're talking about chaplains that are not certified, or they can just go say, I'm a volunteer chaplain, they can go speak to your kids. All of that, as I just showed you in legislation, is politics. When we talk about the construction workers working in the heat and nothing can be done about it, that's politics. That's everyday issues. That's politics. So if you don't get involved in politics, politics will definitely get involved in you. We have to take ownership. We have to get engaged. We have to pay attention, and we have to act on that. How do we act on that? We vote. A lot of people want to say another slogan, but my vote don't count. If your vote didn't count, they will not be trying so difficult. They would not have done what they've done. They have decreased the amount of people that are registered. Remember, they did they got eliminated people off the registered rolls.
Right.
By them eliminating certain people off the registered rolls, now we are down. I think Republicans have over like 900,000 people more than Democrats. When I told you in 2020 we were on top,
right?
Because they've deleted a lot of people off of the rolls.
Right.
They've done some other things too, but I'm not going to get into that. But if your vote didn't count, wouldn't be so strategic in making sure that you can't vote.
Right. And one of the things they did when they did the redistricting because of the 2020 census, they said that they did some of it to I forgot the word that they were using to make
areas,
assure
exactly that they have the majority.
Yes, for them to have the majority. And then it was one candidate who was trying to say that they were protecting certain Black neighborhoods to make sure they have a Black representative. I'm like, they ain't do that. They were splitting up districts and making Black people lose.
Most definitely. So what I'm saying is, how could you get involved? How could you help? You get involved. How do you get involved? You reach out to your representative. Ask questions about bills. Go to town hall meetings. That's one thing that's so disheartening is a lot of times I'll set up a town hall meeting and I get 20 people, if that. Get engaged. Take the ownership. Get out and vote. Register. Another thing you do, if you are voting by mail, remember we have to go back and re-register it. So if you used to vote by mail and you didn't re-register this year, you need to do it, and you need to do it before, I believe. I think it's before June or July. One of those
for the primaries. Primaries, it's probably because like July something. Yeah.
If not, then you are going to have to go out there and stand in line. And we know that has other things. They do things like taking away the boxes. We have
the days of early voting, the times of early voting, the days and the time of early voting.
So basically, what I'm trying to tell people: what's the solution? I need you to get involved. I need you to get involved. I need you to make this a part of your responsibility, to know what's happening, to know who to vote for, and in some cases, as you stated, I need y'all to get out here and run for office.
Yes.
Run for office. I just told you, hey, this wasn't my dream thing, but my dream is to have a better life for every person. I think everybody should have a good life. And so anything that I can do to ensure that, I'm going to do. Now, when I say get out there and run for office, I'm going to make myself very clear. But if your representative is doing their job, you don't need to run against them. And the reason I say that is because we have 35 seats. We can't keep running for the same 35 seats. That's not helping.
Right.
We need you to take some of these seats that we have our other colleagues in back. We got to take them back. When I go and I look at the thing and I see some of my Republican colleagues, they running unopposed.
They running unopposed. That's the crazy thing to me. Unopposed, and you did a bad job. You weren't even good at your job, and ain't nobody gonna keep competing with you to get it.
You know what I'm saying? Because people are not paying attention.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, and because they've made it where you don't have to stay in your district until a year after you win the election, run against them.
Can you imagine?
Listen.
Oh my God.
And a lot of times, I can't win that seat because it's a red seat. Listen, if you're talking about the right things, property insurance and rent, they don't care what color the seat is, because they know the hard time they're having with those issues.
Yes.
So you have to make sure your messaging fits who you're talking to.
Right. And there's enough stuff that's happening across the board that
exactly.
that don't have nothing to do red, blue, nothing. That's life. Yeah.
Exactly. It's life. It's being a good Floridian. So my message is, I need y'all to pay attention. My office is always available if you want more information on any of the bills, or if you just decide you're going to go and you're going to look up on myfloridahouse.com and look up some legislation, or you're going to look at Florida Channel and see some things, and then you decide you have a question about it, feel free, reach out, because I will be more than happy to go through it with you and to just, like I said, I'm an educator. And I truly believe that when people know better, they do better.
Yes.
And so I feel like a part of my job as a legislator is to ensure that you know. So I'm so happy that you invited me on.
I'm happy you came.
I'm willing to come back anytime.
Yes.
And we just have to make sure that we all recognize that Florida's mine, it's yours, it's ours, and we have to act like it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I truly appreciate that. You broke everything down, and thank you so much. And like you said, anytime you want to come back, just let me know. And we really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much, State Rep District 104, Felicia Robinson, for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. All righty.
Elections have consequences.